escucha y leer. Soy un estudiante del colegio de B.T. Washington Arts High School.
Using a second language to communicate with others in the real world is an important goal for all language learners. As we continue the adventure of learning a language other than English, you'll see students taking their language skills out into the community. You'll see how communities welcome input from and interaction with language students. And you'll see how some of the most successful teachers in Texas implement the program goal of communities into their daily lesson plans. Any examination of how language is taught in Texas begins with a mention of the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills for Languages Other Than English. The TEKS for LOTE are the standards which describe what all students should know and be able to do at various stages within the LOTE discipline. These standards are organized around 5 program goals, often referred to by educators as the 5 C's. First and foremost is communication. In LOTE classrooms, students are striving to use a second language, and communication is the vehicle language learners use to become proficient. The other 4 goals stem from the use of the target language in and out of the classroom. Students learn about the cultures associated with their second language and gain valuable insights into the perspectives of the people of that country or region. Learning a second language, students make connections with other subject areas and connect to gain information in the target language. Students who make the comparisons between their second language and culture and their first language and culture develop insights into the nature of all languages and cultures. Finally, students are encouraged to take their second language out into the community, to use it with neighbors here at home or in communities abroad. It is the acceptance of and implementation of these 5 program goals into daily lesson plans that Texas educators believe is a key to obtaining advanced proficiency for all language learners.
¿Cuáles productos y servicios ofrecen la compañía? Nuestra compañía es básicamente...
Clearly, communication skills are the primary focus of language study. Through the communication goal, students develop the skills necessary to master the content of the other 4 program goals. These skills include listening, speaking, reading and writing, as well as viewing and showing. Communicative proficiency derives from control of 3 modes of communication: interpersonal, interpretive, and presentational. Students need practice in all 3 types of communication in order to satisfy their most commonly expressed reason for taking any language class: to learn to communicate.
The first thing that I do when I do my lesson plans is think about the communication that's going to take place between the students. At this level, interpersonal communication is the most important, that they be able to give the information that they want to give, and more importantly, they receive the information that they want to receive. So that's where I start. From that point, I want to bring in culture. I want to bring in new vocabulary. I want to bring in a connection with students that they don't have already, that being with students who don't speak the target language, in this case Spanish. So everything revolves around that interpersonal communication. If at some point then we can get to other kinds of communication, interpretive communication, communication of presentation type, that's good too. But at this point it's the interpersonal communication that's most important. It's what they want to do. They want to learn how to speak Spanish.
The primary mode of communication is the interpersonal mode, where there is a direct exchange of communication between individuals, either listeners and speakers or readers and writers.
Tenemos compañías en más de 90 países, incluyendo Norteamérica, África, Francia, Alemania.
At Churchill High School in San Antonio, these students are involved in a mock job fair. They're demonstrating proficiency in the interpersonal mode of communication, speaking and listening. This mode of communication requires active negotiation of meaning between the individuals and calls for a natural pattern of adjustment and clarification in order to be successful. Another form of interpersonal communication occurs between writers and readers when both writer and reader have access to one another. In Heidi Kirby's German 2 class at Cinco Ranch High School near Houston, her students are emailing students in Germany. The 2 groups of students are thousands of miles apart, but utilizing the technology available in today's language classroom, they are able to be e-pals in their target language. Using their computers, the students are communicating in the interpersonal mode. They are developing the skills of reading and at the same time developing the skills of writing. Another mode of communication is the interpretive mode. In this form of communication, the communicative source, the speaker or writer, is not present. The listeners or readers must determine for themselves the meaning of what is being communicated, using the skills of listening and reading. At Cambridge Elementary in the Alamo Heights School District, these first-grade immersion students receive a full dose of all three modes of communication in the target language right from the first day. The interpretive mode occurs not only as students listen to their teacher, but also during reading time. For these youngsters, full comprehension of what they're reading is still a ways down the road, but their interpretive skills are already being enhanced, and they're developing viewing skills, using pictures to help interpret what they see and read. In today's LOTE classroom, more advanced students can take their interpretive skills to the Internet. In Vince McGee's Latin 1 class at Lake Highlands High School in the Richardson Independent School District, students research a project in their target language on the computer. The teacher is available to help students navigate the Internet, but the students themselves must apply what they've already learned in order to interpret the messages provided by the Internet author. The third mode of communication to be mastered by language learners is the presentational mode, which calls for the creation of formal messages, public speaking, or an editorial, for example, to be interpreted by listeners or readers where there is no opportunity for active negotiation of meaning between listeners and speakers or readers and writers. At Rayburn High School in Pasadena, these French 3 pre-AP students are making presentations to their classmates that compare cultural similarities between young people in the U.S. and France.
Une robe jaune, une robe semi-rouge, robe rouge, c'est ma favorite. Et the Ralph Lauren, Dior, Chloe.
Current fashion trends for teenagers is a popular theme, and the presenters use the skills of speaking and showing. In this example, as is often the case, more than one mode of communication is occurring in the LOTE classroom. Here, as presenters communicate in the presentational mode, the rest of the class or audience uses the interpretive mode to view and listen to the presentation.
I want the kids to be able to go to a foreign country, check into a hotel, ask for a clean towel, get tickets to the opera, maybe not the opera, but get tickets to something that they're interested in, to be able to use the language. And I think that's where the texts have driven us, to make it useful to them.
As we will see, learning languages other than English occurs not only within the LOTE classroom, but also beyond the walls of the school, out in the community. Learning a second language increases opportunities for students to interact with communities in Texas and in other parts of the world. In George Troth's classroom at MacArthur High School in Irving, the teacher has created an environment where even beginning students are required to remain grounded in the target language. The atmosphere, en français, prepares students to connect with French-speaking communities.
My theory is that language acquisition begins when the students begin to hear the language. Not when they begin to speak it, but when they begin to hear it. Because a child growing up hears the language first before he or she begins to speak. So they hear it first from me, and then gradually they begin to speak.
Another way teachers implement the community's program goal is by reaching out to the world community through the use of technology.
Of course, I think technology has been such a wonderful opportunity for students in the schools that we're building now, in working with the principals of these schools, and they're asking, do we want traditional language labs? And we've all decided no, that we want multimedia labs or opportunities for teachers to have computer access with internet access for the students. Some of these activities are so wonderful because it's the old concept of pen pals, but now they're e-pals. So students have immediate feedback from friends in all parts of the world. They really establish a friendship. And one such situation at one of our newer high schools, the connection was so strong that the teachers became very close friends as well. And the teacher in Sugar Land in our area actually traveled to France this past summer to meet the teacher in her sister school in France. So they took a lot of pictures that then they were able to email back and forth to the students. So it was wonderful.
Die stehen hier blau, ja, mit USA. Guck, Deutschland, USA. In der Mitte In lila is vergleichen, similarities, yeah?
In Heidi Kirby's German 2 class at Cinco Ranch High School in Katy, students use the internet and their second language skills to email students in German-speaking communities thousands of miles from Texas.
Noch jemanden? Whitney, bitte.
In den USA wechseln die Schüler die Klassenzimmer.
Gut, in den USA wechseln. Noch jemanden? Ja, Philipp?
In den USA haben die Schüler jeden Tag die gleiche Fächer.
Gut, in den USA haben die Schüler, Brian, hast du schon? John, Chatfield.
Ja, in die USA und Deutschland gehen Mädchen und Jungen die Schule zusammen.
Good, yeah, in Deutschland, USA. Well, when I start a lesson or a theme or I take whatever we're covering at that time, I sit down and plan accordingly. If it takes 7 to 10 days, and I look at what I'm going to cover. Then I make sure I'm never going to cover all 5 C's in one day, but I try to pick selected activities for each of the 5 C's. Like today, we happen to be reviewing communities because we're reviewing in our German 2 book about, or the theme is school systems. And so what I did is, we talked about it and communicated about it yesterday in class, but as you saw today, I also elaborated and we went into mailing the Key Pal in Germany, and that is the extension of community.
As students and teachers go beyond the walls of the classroom, they have the opportunity to not only learn from native-speaking members of the community, but also to use their skills in real-world situations.
In terms of the community, we've really had some spectacular things happen with our teachers and our students. One year, one of our partners is KVDA, which is the Telemundo television, and one year our students translated the news into Spanish for the internet for KVDA. Another year, one of our Spanish classes translated a huge book that gave all the policies for a particular healthcare organization into Spanish. So we've had wonderful support for the community because our students and our teachers are so willing to use what they're learning in the real world.
Well, I mean, like, when you see people, like, at different places, like at stores and stuff, and, like, they don't understand, like, I've tried before to, like, speak Spanish, and, like they kind of laugh because the accent is off, and, like, but, I mean, they're thankful at the end because, like, we, like, finally communicate. I mean, I might not say it perfectly, but at least we get the gist of it.
Out in the community, knowing a second language can be an invaluable skill.
This girl's at the store, and she's cashier at Walmart or Kmart, whatever. And this lady and this family obviously is French or Belgian. And this lady said, "Je me demande si elle parle français." You know, I wonder if this girl speaks French, because obviously maybe they were not comfortable with their English. And the girl turns around and she says, "Bien oui, madame." And the woman just about, you know, fell over. And she said, "Ça fait combien?" So this girl tells her, "How much does that cost?" This girl said, "Oh, ça fait blah blah." And she said, and she came the next day. She was so excited. She was about jumping the roof of the school, telling me about she had met this French family and how she had used her French. And so I encourage them to use their French. Communication is the basis of a language. And I have this little story that I tell them. Of all the years I've been to, I'm from Quebec, my hometown. Of all the years I've been to Quebec, came to France, I've never seen a person down the Champs-Élysées or anywhere that come up to me and say, "Hey, I want the passé composé of this verb," you know? And I keep telling the kids, accuracy is very important, but communication comes first.